Daily Bible Time, Wednesday morning. Dominic Steele and I have finished Masculinity the Manual by Al Stewart, and had a really good discussion with Al yesterday on the Pastor's Heart, and let me encourage you to go and check that out, check out that discussion. I'm going to talk to him again in probably 6 or 8 weeks' time about particularly the man as a husband and the man as a father. They were the last 2 chapters of the book, and we didn't get time for discussion on that yesterday, but we'll do that in 6 or 8 weeks' time. But super interesting discussion with Al Stewart yesterday. Today, a little bit of planning for the pastoral conference on Christians ministering to transgender persons and also to people with same-sex attraction, Christians with same-sex attraction. And then I'm having the final job interview of our first round of potential maturity pastors to replace John Quine. And so appreciate your prayers for us in that. Now, we're in Isaiah 12 today. We're concluding the account of the Messiah's kingdom, which started at the beginning of chapter 11. And also chapter 12 is, it's the end of the first division in the book of Isaiah. Barry Webb says, he's a terrific lecturer in theology, in Old Testament. When I was a Bible college student, he's retired now, he's written a commentary on Isaiah. He says chapter 12 celebrates both the rule of the Messiah and God dwelling among his people. They're one and the same thing. This is the goal towards both the Zion prophecies of chapter 2 and 4 and the Messianic prophecies of 9 and 11 are pointing. There are 2 songs in the chapter, verses 1 and 2 and 4 and 6. Each of these songs is introduced with the words, "On that day you'll say," and then in between the songs in verse 3 there's a promise which really is the central verse, and we'll pick up on that tomorrow. So today the first verses, the first song, verses 1 and 2 of Isaiah 12. "On that day you will say, I will give thanks to the Lord. Although you are angry with me, your anger has turned away and you have comforted me. Indeed, God is my salvation. I will trust him and not be afraid. For the Lord himself is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation." And so first thing we note really in this song is that it is singular, first person singular. And David Peterson reminds us that the form of the song reminds us that although frequently genuine praise will be offered corporately by God's people as a group, you as an individual, you can't take part in that collective praise unless it is individually true in your life. And so, you need to ask yourself, is this true of me? That I give thanks to you, Lord, that you were angry with me, but your anger has been turned away from me and you have comforted me, and that I am now personally not afraid. You are my strength, my song, you are my salvation. So I ask, is this true of me? And you ask, is this true of you? Now, what are we giving thanks for? What are we asking? Is this true of me? Well, first thing, that we are delivered from divine judgment. I will give thanks to you, Lord. Although you were angry with me, your anger has turned away and you have comforted me. David Peterson notes God's people would acknowledge that the anger of the Lord directed at them collectively also was directed at them personally. And as Peterson says, a time is going to come when they can say that the anger of the Lord has been satisfied and that he has turned away his anger from them. And he notes that back in 10:25, this hope is expressed in terms of God's fury being dealt with through the Assyrian attack coming to an end and then being directed at the destruction of the enemy. The Lord expresses his anger, and then the Lord turns away his anger. There's nothing a human can do to appease God's anger or escape from it by their own cunning or initiative. It is God who turns away his anger. And so we want to give thanks to God for his comfort. Your anger has turned away and you have comforted me. Webb says the angry God is also the one who is finally the source of comfort. Peterson notes that at this stage of Isaiah's prophecy, there's no complete explanation of the way God's anger is satisfied, the way God's comfort is offered. We're in Isaiah 12. We've got to wait for that till Isaiah 53. The Assyrian invasion, the Babylonian exile, they were terrible punishments for sin, but they didn't automatically restore the people to fellowship with God. Or introduce the blessings of salvation. Something more is needed. And it's Isaiah 53 that we get the ultimate revelation of this, when we're introduced to the person who can take the place of God's guilty people and restore us. So at this point, we don't have the mechanism of restoration, but we are promised that a day is coming when the believer will be able to say, I trust and I'm not afraid. Verse 2, indeed, God is my salvation. I will trust him and not be afraid. For the Lord himself is my strength, my song. He has become my salvation. So let me draw application for us today. David Peterson notes Isaiah is looking forward to a time when God's people will trust him and not be afraid, rejoicing in your comfort and salvation. It'll only happen when God has taken the initiative, when God has acted graciously to renew and rescue his people, and he will do this, Isaiah 11 says, through his promised ruler, the Messiah. And so for us, living this side of Jesus, we can say, yeah, the Messiah has come in Jesus, and God's rule has started. Peterson reminds me of Zechariah's song at the start of Luke's Gospel. I'll just give it to you from Luke 1:68, and I'll finish with this. Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel. He has come to his people. He has redeemed them. He has raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David, as he said through his holy prophets of long ago, salvation from our enemies and from the hand of all who hate us, to show mercy to our ancestors, to remember his holy covenant, the oath he swore to our father Abraham. So we think back to, well, Isaiah said it's going to happen, it's going to be a person, it's all going to take place. And then Zechariah says, it's here, it's now, he's here, in Jesus. Thanks for joining us on Daily Bible Time today. Looking forward to verse 3, this key verse in the chapter, tomorrow morning. God bless.